talk about this for just a minute. So I talked about this on Ruffino and Joe show. If you haven't already gone over there and subscribed, you need to do so. Over the last week, Georgia State head coach Shawn Elliott decided to leave his post as the head coach at Georgia State and go back to Columbia to be the tight ends coach. Now, in press release and him getting out why he made the decision, he said a big factor was his family being in Columbia. That's why he wanted to move back. Now, as someone who is married, has 2 children, I fully understand the whole Shawn Elliott wanting to be closer to home, wanting to be closer to family. You got 85 kids that are at Georgia State, if not more, that it's also your responsibility. Now, I know that you got to take care of your family too. Being around your wife, being around your kids, it's a big deal. But you're also responsible for 85 other kids. And I think that there's going to have to come a time. So we talk about, at least on this show, and I know it happens everywhere else, we talk about regulations for NIL. We talk about regulations for the transfer portal. We talk about regulations and even potentially a collective bargaining agreement in college football, at least in college football. But why don't we have anything changing for conferences about realignment and things that they are doing with the college football playoff, or what they're doing with TV contracts and extensions? We never talk about the time frame that coaches leave. It's a free-for-all any given moment. I do think that it's funny, okay, that we have, at least as a fan base or as a media corps, are constantly talking about the wild, wild west being, okay, whether it be with the players of NIL, whether the players of the transfer portal, whatever it may be. But we never, ever talk about conference realignment, coaches leaving in February. I mean, if your son, think about this for a minute. If your son were at Georgia State and the head coach left in February and you had to cancel a spring game and the head strength coach is running the program, what would your God's honest opinion as a parent be as if your child was on that football team? I know what mine would be. I would want to tell Shawn Elliott to stick it where the sun doesn't shine. This is February, y'all. He could have made a decision well back in December. Now, I know that some position changes happened at South Carolina late, which then factored into this, but it doesn't matter. Sometimes you got to do things that you don't want to do. Now, that's not the only. Shawn Elliott isn't the only. How do I want to say this? Shawn Elliott isn't the only person or coach that has done something a little bit shady like this. I'm old enough to remember when Ryan Grubb, the OC at Alabama. Now, a lot of you LSU fans who are watching this right now are going to say, oh, who gives a shit about Alabama? I'm not going to argue with you as a fan. What Ryan Grubb and Kalen DeBoer pulled off, and Ryan Grubb saying he's going to be the offensive coordinator at Alabama so that they could get through a 30-day portal window where more kids didn't leave, and then he goes to Seattle, is also extremely shady. Now, it was reported, I think, by our buddy Ryan Fowler that we've had on the show, that when Alabama hired Ryan Grubb, they knew that there was a potential that he could be the next head coach at Washington or may be the offensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks. They knew that was a possibility. Did the players know it was a possibility? Because Ryan Grubb went to a podium 2 weeks after he was officially hired and said he was going to be the offensive coordinator at Alabama. So everybody wants to have these conversations about players, about NIL, regulating that, which I don't disagree with. The transfer portal, regulating that, I don't disagree with. But the one thing that I full-heartedly think has to come into question here, we talk about changing the college football schedule dates so that it makes life easier for coaches. So you want to do all of this for players when that TV money is not being collectively bargained with for players to get paid for football, but coaches oh man, this NIL thing, this portal thing, it's such a big deal. I'm going to leave and go somewhere else. Oh, it's so tough. Coaches have had it easier. It's funny when the players start having a little bit more of a say-so, coaches are like, you know what, man? I'm done with it. You're playing dirty games. Oh, well, players can do it too. Get out of here with that. Those are 18 and 21-year-old kids. You're a grown-ass man, some of you with mustaches. I tell you, man, it's a dirty business. It's a very dirty business. And I am not going to come off of the take and the thought and the processy of you trying to convince me that what Ryan Grubb and Kalen DeBoer pulled off, what Shawn Elliott and Shane Beamer pulled off, yeah, it's better moves for them as individuals. Well, the players can't go anywhere. The players can't do anything. Now, I will tell you, there's going to be a day where we have a collective bargaining agreement or something like a collective bargaining agreement in college football. And I'm going to tell you, the one thing, players, listen to me very closely. I would put in there, in that, whatever they want to call this collective bargaining agreement that you're going to get, that if a head coach, coordinator, or position coach leaves, that you have something where if a position coach leaves, you have 15 days to enter the portal. If a head coach or coordinator leaves, you have 30 days to enter the portal. You better put it in there. Because, coach, if you think that this is the last time that like somebody like Kalen DeBoer or Shawn Elliott is going to pull some shit like this, you're crazily naive and stupid. That's all I got to say. All right.